I think they have a medicated shampoo for that.
Well, the claim that all skeptics about Darwinian orthodoxy
Why are his
are
eyes closed?
fundamentalists stands
He thinks
refuted
that if
by
you
me.
can't see
It's
him,
obviously
then
not
you won't be
true.
able to
I'm
make
not,
apart his
neither a
argument.
Christian nor a fundamentalist. But lots and lots of people are skeptical in the scientific community. I know dozens of mathematicians.
Sevens of them even. You just never seem to be able to find any willing to go on record.
Absolutely a preposterous theory. And many, many very significant figures. John von Neumann, one of the great mathematicians of the 20th century, just laughed at Darwinian theory. He hooted at it.
Also, he was part owl.
Perfectly absurd. This is a point in a polemical dispute. It's not a reasonable standard of criticism. Opposition to Darwinian theory is, I wouldn't say widespread, but there's a consistent group of people among
We call them
physicists
douchebags.
and some very good speculative biologists who simply don't accept it, don't even regard it as a scientific theory in any reasonable sense.
Which is why I like my alternate theory, the Magic Man done it.
The interesting argument about the whale, which is a mammal after all,
No shit.
belongs to the same group of organisms as a dog, a human being, a chimpanzee, or a tiger.
Apparently, he got his biology degree at the Neverland Ranch.
If its origins were land-based originally, then we have some crude way of assessing quantitatively, not qualitatively, but quantitatively, the scope of the project of transformation.
So having fur, warm blood, and the ability to lactate mean
Let's put
absolutely
vividly
nothing.
accessible terms. You've got a cow. You want to teach it how to live all of its life in the open ocean.
I remember when
Still
Bessie
the same
graduated
as
from
the
bovine
fact
scuba school.
What
I
do
was
you
so
have to
proud
do
that
from an
day.
engineering point of view to change the cow into a whale? This is crude.
I think by crude you mean stupid.
Now, if the same question were raised with respect to a car, and you ask what would it take to change a car into a submarine, we would understand immediately it would take a great many changes. The project is a massive engineering project of redesign and adaptation. Well, the same question.
Wait a minute. You mean that
occurs with
Aquaman
respect
is
to
the
that
intelligent
proverbial
designer?
cow.
Of
Virtually
course.
every feature of the cow has to be changed. It has to be adapted. But since we know that life on Earth and life in the water are fundamentally different enterprises, we have
Of course,
some
life
sense
on
of
land was
reason.
made by God. Life under the
You know,
sea was made
anytime
by
science
Cthulhu.
avoids
Read your
coming to
Necronomicon.
grips with numbers, it's somehow immersing itself in perhaps an unavoidable but certainly an unattractive miasma. Here's
I
a
don't know.
chance
I
actually
was
to
at the
put
bar
some
the other
numbers
night, and this
on
miasma
top
was
of it.
looking
We're not talking
pretty
about
fine
numbers,
to
we're talking
me.
about simple numbers.
Ooh.
The skin has to change completely. It has to become impermeable to water. That's one change. Breathing apparatus has to change. A diving apparatus has to be put in place.
Don't you think if
Lactation
whales were
systems have to be
intelligently
designed.
designed,
The
then they
eyes
would
have
have
to be
gills
protected.
and
The
not
hearing has to be
lungs?
altered. Salivary organs have to be changed. Feeding mechanisms have to be changed. After all, a cow eats grass, a whale doesn't. As
The
I say,
laser cannons have to
I've
be
tried to do
mounted.
some of these
You gotta hoist the
calculations. The
mainsail.
calculations are
You can't forget to
certainly
triangulate
not
your
hard.
satellite dish. I mean,
But
there's
they're
so much that goes
interesting
into a
because
whale
I
cow.
stopped at 50,000. That is morphological changes. And don't forget, these changes are not independent. They're all linked. If you change an organism's visual system, you have to change a great many parts of its cerebellum, its cerebrum, its nervous system.
Yeah, it would take millions of years to put...
All
Uh-oh.
of these changes are coordinated. So when we're talking about an evolutionary sequence such as this, what's interesting about the cow to whale transition, and I'm just using
Which,
this
by
as
the
an
way,
easily
never
accessible
happened.
What's interesting about the cow to whale transition is that we can see a different environment is going to impose severe design constraints on a
He's
possible
actually experimented to confirm this. He's dropped hundreds of cows into the ocean, and not one of them has turned into a whale.
If there are 2 million
Game,
in
set,
space, how are
match,
those measured?
God.
And what does this suggest about what we should see in the fossil record? To my way of thinking, if
As a
Darwinian
mathematician, the
hypotheses are
field with the
correct,
foremost
it
experts on
suggests
bones,
an enormous plethora of animals, intermediate
cornucopia, even.
and the next step. That won't solve all problems. One wants to know what's directing this change, if anything. But at
I
least
told you,
we will put it
goddammit,
in the
it's
ballpark
Aquaman.
of
Aquaman
possible
directs
outcomes,
evolution.
which is hardly ever done.